How to mix your vocals in 3 easy steps from sounding like this.
Getting that right now, I'm blessed. That's right, I'm blessed. Keep on running the finesse.
To now sounding like this.
Getting that right now, I'm blessed. That's right, I'm blessed. Keep on running the finesse. The finesse. Ready to spin that jet. Spin that jet. That's why I gotta say I'm blessed.
What's poppin', gang? So I've been mixing vocals for a very long time. I've been mixing celebrities. I've been mixing myself. I've been mixing paid clients. So I'm breaking this down into 3 simple steps on how to really mix vocals like a pro. And you can take these tips into any DAW. It doesn't matter if it's Pro Tools, if it's FL Studio, if it's Luna. And let me know if you need me to mix your vocals. You can always hit me up on Instagram. I can help you with that. If you're struggling with mixing your vocals, I got you. Just let me know on Instagram. I respond to pretty much everybody. So out the gate, I'm just gonna go ahead and get started and not waste any more time. Let's go ahead and get started. Number 1, the first thing you wanna do is remove all the issues. And that's before or after you even got the vocal started with. So before the vocal, fix all the issues, meaning fix your room issues, if there's a lot of reverb or anything like that. Fix your mic position. Make sure you're actually speaking directly into the mic and you're not off-centered in a crazy access. Some rappers move around the microphone that way. So make sure the microphone is actually in front of the talent in a decent distance. Make sure you're not in the corner of your room. That's not a great area to record vocals. For some reason, corners like to hold a lot of bass, and you don't want that in your vocal. So make sure you fix all the issues before recording the vocal. If you're in a stage where you already have the vocal already recorded, then you're in a stage where you have to use some plugins. And I have a few options that I could definitely help you with getting in the right direction. So before you start even adding plugins and effects and EQs and all that kind of stuff, you want to do the exact same process. Remove issues. Here's a session that I have pulled up right now. Right now, I'm using Luna for this session. This is a song that I did called Bless, and it's not out right now, but when it is, it will be a link in the description or a tab at the top right. However, step number 1, remove any issues with the recording. So in my situation, I already removed any issues, so I don't have this issue. If I necessarily did have a situation where I recorded in a bad room, and the first thing I would do is remove the room noises. The first thing I would do is go into where I can search and add in any plugin I want. And I'm gonna type in RX, and I'm gonna get different plugins from iZotope, which I think they have so many options as far as plugins that you really need to consider, especially for fixing vocals, like RX10 Vocal Denoiser, which is a really great plugin, or they also have Deverb as well. So I'll probably plug in this as one of the first VSTs on my vocal chain if I had a bad room situation recorded vocal, and just click on learn and just let it do its own thing and figure out, what room noises in there. I mean, honestly, like I said, I recorded this in a good room situation, which is pretty much like right here. My room is pretty much treated. So we'll try to see what it can determine on how it can even improve it. And we'll just A/B and test it.
My little brother said he unfit and all done came back with a twitch. Now I fit 15 in my bag and I got my shit clinched. Wanna get up right now, wanna fight right now.
All right, so I literally just clicked learn, and it figured out some reverb in the mids, highs, and the lows, and determined this right here is a really great setting. And let's just A/B test it real quick, and let me know if you notice it as well.
Bitch, too many crimes might get hit. No, you ain't flying out to do shit. My little brother said he unfit and all done came back with a twitch. Now I 15 in my bag and I got my shit clinched. Wanna get up right now, wanna fight right now.
Now, I mean, like, technically, you can't really hear much of a difference because this, like I said, I already recorded in a really great room situation. However, if you had that problem, this VST right here will fix that problem. And I use this all the time, and it's so great. Now, if you had a situation where you're receiving a lot of noise and stuff like that, like a lot of buzz noise, RX10 Vocal Denoiser, this one is a really great plugin I use all the time. This right here will get all that out. And basically, I just leave it on adapt, and I would hit, since it's exactly for the vocal, I would do surgical, and that's literally it. And that's it. And it'll, you can keep it just like that, and it'll get all the noises, all the static noises or anything that's in there, all of that out. And it's super great. Another step with cleaning up the vocal is go ahead and adding the EQ. Now, personally, I like to cut frequencies before I start boosting stuff because, you want to make sure you control as much of the frequencies as possible, because if you do, getting closer towards that sound that you're looking for is going to be much easier because you're controlling it. All right, so the first plugin for my EQ that I actually use besides Auto-Tune, and I typically like to use Auto-Tune first before I start EQing, and depending on, your personal preference, how you want to organize that, rather EQ before, entirely up to you. Sound to sound. And as long as you're getting the sound you're looking for, that's all that matters. The next thing I added was an SSL EQ, and I cut out around 200 hertz, 220, but I cut a little bit of that out. And then I cut out around 4,080. I felt like for my vocals around that frequency, it felt like a little bit too telephony, so I wanted to cut a little bit of that out. During the process, I ended up boosting just a little bit of high end, probably like a dB or a little bit under that. Another thing you want to do with cleaning up your vocal is making sure that you're bringing up some of the dynamics in that vocal, because, if things get too low, then, you're not hearing it over certain elements of the music. If it's getting too high, it's jumping out and sounding unprofessional. So I use R-Comp as a really good compressor, and it's super great. And I'm not even compressing the vocal that much because I use external compressors and external preamps, and my whole entire session is running out of the SSL Fusion as well, so you're also hearing that. And it's weird how my whole setup is right now. I'm actually running the universal audio interface into an SSL2 interface so you can hear the sound, which is weird. So the output of my interface is going into another interface. So that's just if you want to know. And you can see I'm honestly not even touching this compressor as much. Just look at this.
That's right, I'm blessed. Keep on running the finesse. The finesse. Ready to spin that jet.
You can see my vocal is jumping right here, but if I really wanted to adjust my vocal even more, I will push it down to where it's jumping at. But honestly, I don't really need to because I recorded my vocal with the compressor. So I'm just lightly touching it up with the second one to really fine-tune the dynamics. You definitely want to play around with the attack and the release depending on how fast and slow you're moving, because the overall goal is adjust the dynamics to where it doesn't sound uncontrolled. Another way I like to clean up my vocal is by using the Pultec EQ, and that's by simply dialing around 60 on here on the low frequency, and then turning up attenuate my low frequencies, which means that it's basically cutting it. It's almost like a high pass filter, but not really. What I like to do is trying to find that balance between the low end of my vocal and the 808. So where the 808 still sounds like it's dominant, but the low vocal doesn't sound too dominant, but it sounds low enough where the 808 is more dominant. And you want to control that, because if you don't and you have a lot of low end in your vocal, you could pretty much get an amateur sounding vocal, and where it sounds too muffled sometimes when you say certain words, and that could definitely throw the listener off. Another thing that I wanted to do is actually boost around 3K. A lot of your vocals tend to sit around there, so what you're saying and syllables and stuff like that are coming out around that frequency. So I wanted just to boost a little bit of that as well, so you can hear a lot of more of what I'm saying. So I'm just shaping the vocal a little bit, especially if you're dealing with male vocals. Another thing I like to do with cleaning up my vocals, I love to use the MC DSP AC202, which is basically emulates like an audio channel or like using an audio console. I'm using audio hardware right now for my vocals, but however, this right here kind of cleans it up even more, because sometimes, using all this gear, it can be overwhelming and it can sound too high quality sometimes. So sometimes what I actually do is actually use this plugin to kind of control how high end I want this vocal to sound. And how I do that is by using this 15 IPS, which controls the quality of the vocal as well. 30 is the highest, 15 is in between, and 7.5 is low. So has been really a blessing with using this plugin, because 15 sounds like a very sweet spot for me, at least. And not only that, I actually found out this plugin doing some research and knowing that the rapper Future uses this on his vocals as well. which honestly, I think it sounds great. And it just makes your vocals just sound more realistic. And what it does is kind of get some of those high-end hardware harmonics out of there that just sounds too digital or just sounds a little bit too much. So this is with it off, and make sure you pay attention to the high end.
Getting out right now, I'm blessed. That's right, I'm blessed. Keep on running.
Now let's turn it on.
Ready to spin that jet. Spin that jet. That's why I gotta say I'm blessed. I'm blessed. Get the money, no doubt. I had to run it up, taking a route. I need a 30 million payout. I'm just let it all play out. My nigga locked up, breaking out. And I'm stocked up, we staying out. When are you gon' get straightened out? Bullets got them all spaced out. Ready right now for this shit. Driving for miles in this bitch.
So just notice how when I moved around the speed, that the quality of the vocal actually changed. And the reason I did that, it just sounded overall polished when I moved it to 15. And that is the exact same settings as some other celebrities do on their vocals to really get that polished sounds and where it doesn't sound too over the top with all the gear that they be using all the time. This right here really cleans that up in a good way where it sounds just natural. Now that's step number one, cleaning up and fixing all the issues before you even start EQing and adding compression, because once you do this step first, everything you do after that is going to be so much better. Step number two is leveling all the sounds. Now, depending on if you have the track outs and stuff like that, I personally start out with the track outs before I start mixing the vocals, because once you have that leveled out in a good way where the vocals can sit, that right there can really determine, how loud you want certain sounds to be. And even being in control really puts you at a better advantage of where the vocals can actually be as far as the whole sound and how it could overall be it. I could show you on this session here, what I did with my levels. Like for an example, like if you add the hi-hat in a certain spot, it can actually make this whole song sound really dull. It can really make or break the overall sound depending on how you care. Let me just show you. If I turn down this hi-hat, this whole song is gonna sound dull.
Drive for miles in this bitch. Too many crimes might get hit. No, you ain't flying out to do shit.
And you don't want it too loud as well. So I just leave it right there. Now, as far as my vocals, I want my vocals to at least hit somewhere near or at least above where the snare is. Now, sometimes it's really finding that balance, what sounds better with the overall song, because not every situation is exactly the same. And you don't want to approach mixing vocals that way as well, because you could really be missing out on a lot of other quality. That's where you're going to find the most impact on what you're actually doing. So leveling the vocals, you want to make sure you find that balance. I personally, when I'm leveling my vocals, I want my vocals to be at least where you can hear it in a situation where if you plug this into your car and someone had a subwoofer, you could at least hear my vocals. So try to keep that mindset of like turning up the vocals to enough where if someone did have a sub, you would actually hear the vocals. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you get a subwoofer and you can actually hear it in your own studio, how high the sub is. So I'm just going to bring the vocal all the way down and then bring it up and just show you like what's a good level and how you could tell if your vocals are leveled good or not. So let's turn the vocal down and bring it up. See, this right here, I see a lot of vocals from people who don't really mix their music. Or if it's like too loud, that's way too loud right there. So you want to turn it down.
And I'm stocked up, we staying out. When are you gon' get straightened out? Bullets got them all spaced out. Ready right now for this shit.
See, that sounds like I said, just trying to find that balance of where it's over the beat, but not like under it to the point where, it's kind of drowned out by the beat. The last step into mixing your vocals like a pro, you need to create an experience. It's super easy to clean up a vocal and get it sounding leveled out, in my opinion. If you need help with that, let me know. I got you. However, the next step into getting your music to sound like a pro, you need to create an experience. The way how you do that is to really push and finalize on that sound that you're looking for. Does it sound like super airy? Do you want your vocals sounding very dry. Depending on the situation or the artist themselves, you really need to fine tune that sound. Now, personally, I like to go for a little bit of reverb. I don't like my vocals sounding like super reverby. However, I still use reverb on my vocals, and the one that I love using the most is from Baby Audio called Crystalline. And honestly, I know a lot of people always use aux channels for their reverbs and stuff like that, but some of the times I don't really feel like doing that or necessarily see it as a bad thing to just throw it on the actual channel that you're using for your vocals, which I personally did myself, which I use it on here. And you could always adjust the actual mix of the reverb so it doesn't sound like too reverby. So the first reverb that I added to try to create the experience that I really wanted to impact. I just wanted to basically boost and impact the stuff that I was saying. Basically, this reverb kind of does that, which is giving me a space where it doesn't sound dry, but it also brings up the reverb as well when I'm done talking, so you can hear it a little bit more. This reverb does that easily with the dry and ducker effect. So you could duck it where it doesn't sound like a lot of reverb when you're talking, and then when you're done, it'll bring it up so you can hear it more. And I left it at like a 75%.
Getting up right now, I'm blessed. Keep on running that finesse. Ready to spend that check. Yeah. That's why I gotta say I'm blessed.
That I also added another reverb as well, and this is what it sounds like.
Getting up right now, I'm blessed. Keep on running that finesse. Getting up right now, I'm blessed. Keep on running that finesse. Ready to spend that check. Yeah. That's why.
And also that reverb is kind of like spacey as well. So I kind of wanted to just add just a little touch, to just a little splash, or just little, something in the background. And that reverb kind of gave me that as well. Another point to creating the experience, I wanted my vocal to just add and have just some type of detail to it, so where you can kind of feel some of the words roll off my tongue a little bit. What I use for that is a vocal exciter, which is called Type A from Anything Ltd. And honestly, this plugin is super great for exciting vocals. And the way how I personally use it, I literally just throw it on and I just adjust the mix knob. I don't even mess around with some of these bands. However, if you wanted to do so, you could do that. And honestly, it just sounds super great. And I'm gonna just show you how much detail this thing adds when you just throw it on. And let me just turn it off, and I'm gonna show you what it sounds like when you turn it back on. So I started with the effect off.
Getting up right now, I'm blessed. Keep on running the finesse.
Now let's turn it on.
Ready to spend that check. Yeah. That's why I gotta say I'm blessed. Get the money, no doubt. I had to run it up, taking a route.
Now you can see when I added that, it just added a lot more detail to it. It also positioned the vocal a little bit higher in the mix. As you can see, just that right there alone can help with bringing the vocal on top of the beat, and even just creating and enhancing that experience so you could actually hear it. Those are just a few steps just on helping you figure out how to mix vocals like a pro. And let me know in the comments if this video actually helped you. And let me know what other videos you want to see on this channel, and make sure you comment down below for that giveaway as well. And also, YouTube says this video right here is the one you need to be watching. I don't know why. You might have clicked on something around YouTube, but make sure you click on this video so YouTube can show you the video you need to really watch. And you could be learned. So make sure you click on that video. It might help you in a lot of ways. I don't know why, but maybe this video is perfect for you and it's going to take you to the next level. So make sure you click on this video right here. Thank you. Thank you.